the next tip is for iOS. Display and text size settings for easier reading. We'll advance the screen to demo mode. Okay. All right, so here we are. Display settings for easier reading. So I've launched the Settings app on the iPhone, and to get to these settings that I'm talking about, you may not think of this immediately. There's a section called accessibility. Now I can't remember where it is. Right under my finger. In accessibility, a lot of these features obviously are for providing better access for people with some kind of disability, either hearing loss or sight loss or maybe motor skills and things of that nature. So you may not think to look in here for yourself if you're fully able, but in this first section you see display and text size. If you're having some issues reading the text on your iPhone, check out this settings, accessibility, display and text size, and look at some of these options. You can turn on bold text, which helps fatten up the letters, obviously, and makes them a little bit easier to see on the background. You can even change the size. So you can go into larger text size and say larger accessibility sizes, and the app that you're using has to support this feature in Apple's Ecosphere. But at the bottom there is a scale here that you can drag and move and make things larger, if that helps. There's also button shape button. If I turn on so you notice at the top left says the word back, and it has a little arrow. If I want to go to the previous screen, that's a button for tapping on to go back. It is blue, so it does give an idea that there's something different about it. But you can also turn on button shapes, and it'll put, actually, basically for text buttons, it just puts an underline underneath it. So anywhere there's text with an underline, and especially if it's blue, that's a visual clue to you that's actually something you can tap on to get it to do something. Sometimes the text on the screen isn't always apparent that that's something to tap on to do something, so that helps. There's also on-off labels on these switches. So if you turn that one on, you notice that where the green is, there's a little I. And then on the ones that are not green, there's a little O, which was input, output, which is the computer code for on and off. So if the button is off, there's an O in the gray area. And if you turn it on, there's a I or a 1 for being on. So it's actually a 1 and a 0 probably for binary code. But reduced transparency. Some of the interface effects have transparency where you can kind of see what's in the background behind what you're dealing with. So if that's distracting, you can turn that on, and it makes things more opaque. And there's increased contrast, so it just darkens everything to make it look a little bit better or more contrasty. You can even do some special things with the screen colors. That doesn't seem to differentiate without color, doesn't change anything right now for some reason. I don't know what that does. Sorry, I don't know everything. But you can also invert the screen. If it's easier to read white text on a dark background, you can invert. And it's called Smart Invert because if you were to invert the colors of everything on your phone, when you look at a photograph, it would look like a color negative. But Smart Invert will leave things like photographs alone, and it only inverts the colors in the interface itself. So Classic Invert is where it'll invert everything. And you notice the green buttons now are pink instead of green. So that's what will happen to your photographs too. And there's some other things here, color filters and so forth. But the main things I wanted to show was having to do with text. So reading the text and your buttons and everything else on the phone. You can look into these settings on your iPhone and customize the way your interface is if it helps the readability for you. Any questions? All right.